Hi, Susan.
So how did it? How does the judging go, Gary?
There were some very good images, but I was disappointed with some of the standards and some of the basic errors that were being made by photographers that you would expect going into an international competition. You'd expect them to be very, very good. But there were images that I saw where the horizon was crooked. They had dust spots all over the images, poor compositing skills. Also, one of the problems, and we're getting a lot of feedback from someone, one of the problems that I did see was that a lot of the photographers and indeed some of the judges did not really read the definition. There was one topic that I was judging. It said quite clearly in big brackets, color images only. You want to know how many black and whites we got in that competition?
Mm.
So,
Actually, what
but
I
it was
might do is
interesting.
just ask everybody to put it on mute and maybe we'll get less feedback. How are we going?
That sounds a bit better. Oh no, I can still hear it there.
Mm. Okay, I'm not sure how many people we've got on board, Gary Parnell. I can't. Hello, how many we got on board?
13 at the moment.
13. Okay. I think we might get started because we're limited with our time.
Okay,
so first of all,
yep. Sorry, I was going to say I'll just read my comments instead of ad-libbing them.
Yeah, okay, that'd be great.
Yep.
So I'd like to thank Gary for actually doing the reviews for us, and we appreciate his time and details with the feedback. And put in apologies from Joanne Linton, Rob McKay, Rhonda Bellhouse, and Frank Sullivan. So we're going to use the first half of this meeting basically for Gary to give us the feedback. So I'll hand that over to Gary straight away. Thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot. And it's great to be back here. I would love to have been down and seen your new club rooms. The last time I judged for Phillip Island, you were at the back of the library. So would have been good to come down. But oh well, that's life in COVID. Now, as I go through these, please ask questions if you have a question. I can see most of you have got your computer muted. All you need to do is hold down your shift key, not your shift, your space bar key, and that will allow you to speak. So ask questions as we go, particularly if I use a term that you're not familiar with. So do you want me to read out any commendeds or highly commendeds?
Yes, please.
Okay. All right. So we'll start off. The first one was the seventh wave. You've certainly taken this image at a beautiful time of day, nice low setting sun. I love the warm colour palette that has been generated. You have chosen a good...
So, Gary, can I just interrupt for a second?
Yes.
Can we actually see the photo when you're actually talking?
Oh, sorry. All right. Yes, I can do that. Let me share
we love looking at you, but it'd be nice to look at the photo.
That's yes, good point. Can I get the host to allow me to share my screen, please? So, Gary?
I'm working on it.
No, still can't.
I've made you host, so you should be able to.
Right. Okay, and we will use that one. So you should now. So let me just get my views back.
One sec. Here we go.
Exit full screen, and I'll bring that one up. Okay, so you can now see my screen there and your image.
Yes, thank you.
Good. Okay, so we'll start again. You've taken this at a beautiful time of day. You've got a lovely warm color palette because of the lower angle of the sun, particularly in that beautiful rock formation to the right. You've chosen a very good shutter speed that allows you to capture both the texture in the wave and some of the blurred movement, which will then enhance your suggestion of movement. The exposure has been well handled, although you have some slightly overexposure in the wave, but that's probably very minor, and I'm being very picky there. I would suggest you can lower the exposure a little bit in post-production to bring out the detail in the wave. I believe that this would make a stronger image if you cropped it a little on the left-hand side. So sort of down through this. Can you see my pointer on the screen there?
Yep.
Yep. Okay, so good. Cropping it down through there would then bring the wave, which is the hero of the shot, onto your thirds line or onto the point of the Fibonacci spiral. A couple of things. Anytime you're down photographing near water, be very mindful of dust spots or water splash. If you look up in the top right-hand corner, you'll see some here. You'll also see some down in this area here as well. And I think there's also one over this side. So just be very mindful of the splash spots or dust spots. And just also, as I've said in the feedback, just be very careful of over-sharpening. If you look along the cliff here, you'll see a halo. And that halo is indicative of slightly over-sharpening. So just be careful of that. And I gave that image a commended.
Well done, Gary Parnell.
Okay, Silver Leaves Beach. This image has a lot of potential. The rocks and beach provide a good leading line to the people as the main focal point, whereas the wet sand and the water reflection provide a good leading line to the sun. The exposure has been well handled, but the image will benefit from some post-production editing. I would suggest that you need to decide which is going to be your main subject and to edit that accordingly. At the moment, you've got really two subjects that are conflicting. That's the sun, because the viewer's eye will go to the bright spot and it goes to that leading line and the sun. But humans have what we call a large weighting within the image. And so the human eye will find and search for humans within the image. So you've got these two conflicting main focal points. So if you cropped this image down through here, taking out the sun, you've still got that lovely leading line of the beach, and you've got the main subject, the people. Conversely, if you crop the other side, you've got a second image there, potential image. So you've got a lot of really good potential within this image. Brighten the people up, and they'll really stand out, and that can be a very, very good image. Next one, the different dahlia. I love the artistic treatment you've given on this image. The complementary colours of the flower and the leaves in the background work well together and allow your main subject to stand out. As is, I feel that the image is slightly unbalanced and suggests that maybe duplicating the leaves into the upper corners may give it more balance. What I'm talking about there, as you can see, the balance, the green down here, it's a very bottom heavy image. And I'm sort of thinking that if you just crop, or not crop, but clone some of these up and put something up here, that will help balance the image out. So when using dynamic color in the background, such as pure black, you need to ensure that it is black with no unintentional bits on show. So in this image, you've got a splodge. I'm calling it a splodge. It looks like something has been erased from the image using a pure black. If you're going to, and that's where I'm circling just here in this spot here. So if you're going to erase something or that sort of thing, I'd suggest you use cloning so that it will pick up the texture from another part of the image. and will just help you get rid of those unintentional bits where you've got this disparity in the color. But I found that a very good image, and I gave it highly commended.
Well done, Joanne.
Okay, photo opportunity. I love the story behind this, where photographic clubs go out. You've got all these photographers around, and that's the thing. I really do like that. And there's some beautiful colour that you've got from the autumn colours in the trees. I can understand why you really took this. I suggest that both the contrast and the saturation could be increased to bring out those colours, and I would also suggest that the image be cropped to exclude the path. So that's this path down here, along here. So if you exclude that, if you crop it through this, yes, you're taking out these people and a lot of the ducks, but I think it's a very busy image that could benefit from being made a little simpler, but you've really got some beautiful colors there that you can really enhance and bring out by adding just some contrast or some saturation to it to really bring those colors out. And it's a well-seen image, and I think you've done well to see that and take that image. The next one, Ship's Bell. Certainly an interesting artistic treatment. You have a very strong subject with an almost monochromatic background that appears to be very fog-like in its treatment. The alignment of the bell support is not parallel to the image side, but if you straighten it, and then the horizontal rails will be out of alignment. You may try a perspective crop, or you could really push it out there and really rotate the image to give the perspective, another perspective altogether. So you can see what I'm talking about here, where this support is not parallel, and it just looks a bit unbalanced because of that. So you could really do some fun things with this image, but it's certainly a very good image. No questions so far? Okay, moving on to the next one. Storm on the horizon. The image has been taken at a lovely time of day, which gives a warm palette to the foreground area, attracting the viewer's eye. The sky has some really nice texture, which is worth an image on its own. The position of the marker in the center of the image, and also being bright yellow against the background, the dark background, make it the center of attention for the viewer. But the name of the image, Storm on the Horizon, indicates that you want the viewer to look at the storm and not the marker. I would suggest that you could have moved to the side, one side or the other, it's up to you, and just taken the image without that marker in. But you see what I'm talking about when we talk about that marker being the center of attention, where it's the storm behind it that you want to look at. Okay, moving on to the next one.
That was commended for Susan McLaughlin. Well done, Susan.
Storm on horizon. Did I give that a commended?
Oh no, sorry, I'm one ahead of myself.
You
just ignore me. Yeah, I've gone to sleep.
after the rain.
After the rain.
A nice sharp closed landscape, having a good diagonal line from the bottom right up through the waterfall. You have used a good shutter speed, allowing you to capture the movement in the water. You might consider lifting the shadows on the left-hand side. You may also consider using the autumn effect, as I would think this would work very well in this image. Okay, so just looking at that, if you look at the rocks down the left-hand side here, just need to bring the texture and the brightness in that a little more. Now, the autumn effect, for those who don't know what that is, and there's a lot of good images or a lot of good stuff on the internet that will tell you how to create it. But essentially what you do with the autumn effect is merge two images together. The first image will be sharp and well exposed. The second image will be slightly overexposed and blurry. And when you add them together, it causes your main subject to have this almost imperceptible glow to it. And I often use it in my waterfall shots, and that would really impact this one, and I think it would look magic on that. And I gave this one a commended.
Well done, Susan McLaughlin.
Okay, bathing. Certainly a beautiful day for bathing that you took this on. You've positioned the main group of people very well on the thirds line, and the other group of people provide a good leading line to the boats. The image is soft and slightly out of focus. The water and clouds also show signs of pixelation. This may be caused by overcropping of the image or the low 72 dpi image. When saving an image, try going to the highest possible resolution you can. It just avoids that pixelation. And if you look closely in the clouds, you'll see there's a lot of that jagged edge just around, particularly around this edge of the cloud here and underneath here, if you can see what I'm talking about there. No questions so far. We'll move on to beauty in a roadside. I love the artistic treatment you've given this one. And I also love the name of the image. So it's unusual, and most people would go with a black background, but I like the treatment that you've done with this using the white background. And I think it works really well with the subject matter. As there is no metadata, I cannot tell what aperture was used, but it appears to be around 3 to 4 because of a very shallow depth of field. I would have suggested using an f-stop of around 7 to 8. This would allow a greater depth of field, and more of the flowers would then be in focus. You may consider cropping the image to a square format, as this usually adds strength to an image. And I'll say this now, it's one of the areas that I see very commonly, not just at clubs, at international competitions and that, where you have an image that's almost square. And in fact, this one's 1211 pixels by 1080. It's almost square, but not quite. So if you're getting to an image that's almost square, I'd suggest you crop it to a square format, because a square format is more restful on the eye. It allows you to have a centralized focus. So in other words, in this image, where the center, the flower can be placed in the center. If you try and do that in a format type image, you've got a lot of wasted space either side, and the eye in a square image doesn't have to search all over the image for the main subject. So this would really work well with a square image. So you might consider trying to do that. And I gave this image a commended.
Well done, Rhonda.
Cucumber tendril. This image has a nice diagonal line through it. You have used the available lighting well to enhance your main subject and separate it from the background. A good depth of field has also been used. The image is pin sharp on the main subject. You may consider doing some dodging to darken the brighter areas of the background foliage. So what I'm talking about there is you've got this lovely main subject through here, nice diagonal line, it's nice and sharp. It's being separated from the background because you've got a good depth of field, but you've still got a fair bit of brightness in a lot of the background through here. And you'll get a lot of judges talking about a vignette. But a vignette is placed generally around the main subject, whether it's circular, oval, or some other type of shape. But if you do a dodge and just darken those areas, I think you'll enhance the image no end. And I gave this image a commended.
Well done, Rhonda.
Okay, Dad and the kids. This is certainly a nice family group shot. I like the low angle. So you've taken this from a nice low angle, and that's to be commended. The image is well balanced with the positioning of the chicks and the dad. With no metadata, I cannot be specific, but I think a larger aperture of around 5.6, depending upon your zoom, may have separated the birds from the background a little more. You can see your background there is quite sharp, and it would be nice to have got that a little blurred, so that would separate the main subjects. One of the things I did notice, and I'm not sure what has caused it, if you look at the eye of the adult emu, something funny has happened to that. I'm not sure what's caused that. I tried to figure that out, but I could not. Normally, if there was a flash involved, I would have said it's a red eye problem, but I'm not sure what's caused that. But you might need to have a play with it and see what has occurred in your photography to have caused that, because that has really spoiled an otherwise really, really good image. And the other thing I would suggest is down in the bottom along here, you've got what looks like an edge of a path or something. I would suggest you just crop that out, and that can be a really nice image. Next one, day's end. You've certainly got some great texture in the sky. I like the positioning of the horizon low in the image, as this gives prominence to the sky and makes it the focal point. In this image, I find my eyes are drawn to the bright clouds in the upper area of the image. When the image is turned over, my eyes go to that spot, which is the same place, which indicates that that is the main focal point. I suspect, however, that the colours, I suspect, however, that you are trying to capture the colours in the sunset, not the dark bright bits. These are the dark bright bits that your eye goes to, and I suspect you're trying to capture this area. So you just might need to consider maybe making those clouds a little darker, just to enhance the sky. And when you're taking sunset shots, remember, a lot of people take it as the sun's going down. What this would have been good is to take it after the sun has actually gone below the horizon and it lights up those clouds. This would have been an amazing sight, I think, probably in about half an hour's time, when the sun's actually set, but it's lit up all these clouds. Okay. Next one, dusk dip. An interesting concept. In these type of images, the sun is usually blown out, as is the case here. So you've got this really, really bright ball. And because the camera is seeing the bright light in the main subject, or the main subjects are often silhouetted, I really like the concept of this image, but next time you might consider moving slightly to the right to have the bright sun reflection going through the group. Does that make sense of what I'm saying there?
Yep.
Okay. So that the leading line at the moment is taking you past the group of bathers. If you could just move to the right and have that leading line going straight through those bathers, be a perfect leading line to take the viewer into the image, and the silhouette of the family group at the back there would really then stand out. You can do a similar thing in this image in post-production, and I think that the sand adds nothing to the image. So in other words, you could crop the sand out here, and I think because the sand there is not doing anything to that image, you just need the water and the people. Okay. Delicate and fragile. This image has a very subtle diagonal line. I'll come back to that in a moment. The muted light background works well in this image. The artistic treatment of the out of focus main subject gives a feeling of gentleness and fragility to the main subject. I would suggest a slight vignette to center the viewer's attention onto the flower and cloning out the separate green leaf. Okay, so what I'm talking about here is in the background, you've got this dark line that forms a lovely diagonal from the lower corner here up through the image and takes your viewer into your main subject here. The leaf I'm talking about cloning out is this one here, just up above the main subject. But yes, I like that image very much. Next one, and I'll just go down to it, is evening light. This is certainly a beautiful light, and I congratulate you for not looking the other way, as most people do when photographing the sun. The image is sharp where it needs to be, and the image is well exposed. I suggest that your depth of field is too deep, as the boats in the back are distracting, and a shallower depth of field would have lessened their impact. And by that, I'm talking about these boats way in the background. You've got a very large depth of field, and it would be nice if they were slightly blurred out, because this one particularly here impacts on this boat here. But it's got taken a lovely time of day, and I think you've got a nice image there. Okay, next one, that should be good morning, I think. Yeah, a golden morning. Great time of day for image making. The color palette that you've used is very small, tending to the warm end of the spectrum. Don't be afraid to pull the darks down towards the black, as this image is all about the golden light. I suggest making the pier foreground and the hills into a silhouette. This would also help remove the noise from the hills. So what I'm talking about here is you've got this pier here, and when you have a close look, you can still see a lot of texture within the pier. And same with this, you've got a lot of texture still in the foreground here, and in the background, it may have been caused by a bit of haze, but the hills, you've got a bit of noise texture in those hills. If you pull the blacks down and make those into a silhouette, you get rid of that texture, and I think that would make it a much stronger image, because it's all about that beautiful golden color that you've got there. Okay, the next one, stormy takeoff. This one here. Okay, stormy takeoff, a very atmospheric image with those lovely, lovely dark clouds. You've used a good shutter speed to attain a sharp image, yet slow enough to suggest movement in the propeller. The horizontal color banding in this image adds a great deal of impact, and I suggest needs to be highlighted. You have positioned the plane well on the thirds line to add impact to the image. I would suggest a touch more contrast or curves to make the grass pop. Watch out for the dust spots, particularly in the sky. So what I'm talking about here, apart from the dust spots, you can see this free medium wind in 10 minutes. Wow. Okay. I'd better hurry. You've got some dust spots here. What I'm talking about here is make this grass pop a little more. The horizontal lines, or these horizontal lines, give a band to the image. It's certainly well done from that point of view. Okay, jumping into the next. Sorry, and I gave that a commended.
And that's from Catherine. So this will finish up in 40 minutes, but Gary, you're most welcome to join us for our second link, because we've got 2 links that for the meeting.
Okay, all right. If we drop out, then I'll jump back in and just to finish it, but I'll try and make it a little bit quicker.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, entry to a safe harbour. The water in this image forms a lovely S-curve, taking the viewer's eye into the image. The rocks in the foreground are taking the viewer's eye into the pole in this image. I get the impression the photographer was unsure as to the main focal point of the image. Is it the pole, or is it the waterway, or the colour in the sky? With the horizon being through the centre of the image does not give importance to either part of the image. Viewing the image on a photographic monitor, the foreground becomes very, very dark and overpowering. But moving it to a standard monitor, the image loses the color in the sky, possibly converting the image to monochrome and deciding what is your main focal point, and editing to that format would, I think, certainly help on that image. Okay, eyeballs, eye on the ball. A good sport photojournalistic image, as Henry Bresson would have said, you caught this image at the decisive moment. This requires planning and application to the game. I like the position of the batsman on the thirds line. You have considered, you may consider increasing the contrast to give the image a little more pop and make the batsman stand out a bit more. I also suggest darkening the background to lessen the impact on the image. So you've got a really well composed image, and I've given this a highly commended.
Well done, Jenny Skews.
Eye to eye, a very good emu portrait. This image is sharp in the right places with the background being nicely blurred, enabling the main subject to stand out. The bright patches behind the emu's head are a little distracting, and I suggest you consider darkening them. This can be done by dodging or by editing in Lightroom. I suggest a little more sharpening on the bird's head will bring out that lovely texture that you've got. And to be honest, I actually did try that on this image, and it really makes the detail stand out. And you might also think about, I did an image like this that for one of mine that I took similar to this, and I converted that to monochrome, and it really made the emu pop. So you might consider doing that as well. And I thought this was a really nice image and gave it a highly commended.
Well done, Lynn.
Okay, Finch. Your choice of aperture has provided good separation to the main subject from the background. You've used a good shutter speed of 1,000th of a second to be able to get good detail in the bird. However, there are some reason the bird's feathers are blurred. I'm not sure what's caused that, but you might need to find out what has caused that. And that's caused a loss of detail. And although the eye is very sharp, it's the feathers that are slightly blurred. It is possible over-sharpening is done. It is possible that over-sharpening is shown by the halo. Maybe the possible cause. So you can see the halo around the edge of the bird here, particularly over the beak, and that's what I'm talking about, that halo. I would recommend that in future you do not use an aperture priority when photographing birds, as this allows the camera to set the shutter speed, and you require less thousandths of a second, as you have here, as a minimum shutter speed and upwards of 2,000ths of a second for moving birds. By using shutter priority, you maintain that shutter speed, whereas aperture priority, the camera will set the shutter speed and might set it very low. So that's just something that you could consider for future. But I like the composition of the image. It certainly works well. Okay, the next one is flannel flowers. Still life flowers that has potential. I like your use of a black background, as this highlights the main subject. At the moment, the flower appears to be a little washed out. Some would use the term a little muddy. I think that increasing the exposure or the highlights detail will make the flower stand out more. I would also suggest that you consider cropping again to that square format, as I spoke earlier. Consider a lower angle perspective when shooting also. I would suggest that you have a look at Anthony Shee's work on still life. He did some similar images to this, and his work is outstanding. So it's just you have a look at theirs to get some idea of what I was talking about there. Icy Blast. You have used a good compositional tool by photographing along the flat fence line and focusing on the first pole for your focal point. Your exposure has been well handled. The shooting position adds height and power to the fence. You might consider increasing contrast and exposure a little to give the image a bit more of a kick. Also, you might consider turning this into a monochrome, as that would work very, very well as a monochrome. Next one, marble shadows. In this image, you have pushed the saturation, but it works well enhancing the warm colors of the setting sun. You have placed the tree nicely on the Fibonacci spiral to add strength to the image. The image is well exposed and sharp throughout. The dynamic range adds interest to this image. So the dynamic range that I'm talking about is the range between the sky and the lovely warm textures of the foreground here. And I've given that image a highly commended.
Well done, Robert McKay.
Marlowe, an interesting concept using a panorama format to enhance the horizontal lines of the image, providing a calm feel to the scene. So your horizontal images really provide that calming feel. The complementary color palette of the green reeds and the blue mountains also adds to the sense of calm in the image. This image reminds me strongly of the image done by Andreas Gurkes called Rhine 2. And for those who are unfamiliar with it, that Rhine 2 sold for about $4 million in 2011, I think it was. This image also shows that you can take lovely images even when the sun is high in the sky. So a lot of people say, I can't take it midday. This one shows that you can, and I've given this a highly commended.
Well done, Brenda.
Okay.
Can I interrupt there? We
Yep.
probably need to swap over to the next Zoom in less than a minute. So
Okay.
I might have to reclaim the host and swap us over.
Okay, I'll stop share now. And yep.
We'll see you on the other one.
See you on the other side.
Okay, thank you.